in a higher organization, without which I'd be scared to death.
To our eyes, these are merely routine scenes of urban life. In South Africa, this breaking down of legislated racial barriers is a cosmic political event. The restaurants, not just the fancy international hotel restaurants, but fast food joints, no longer segregated. And in places where contact is even closer, the old rules no longer apply. The steady collapse of at least the outward signs of apartheid continues slowly.
Ladies, would you like to do your laundry in water like this? Would you like to make your husband's breakfast coffee from water like this? Maybe you'd like to take a bath or shampoo your hair in it. I can't do any of those things in my home. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know where to go next. All I know is I can't live with this anymore.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Harry Reasoner. I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Diane Sawyer. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
There'll be 50,000 people here tomorrow. The Office Automation Expo. This company is big in computers. They're just announcing their first system. But one company has it all right now. Professional workstations, electronic printers, file servers, and they can all work together. They've already installed more than 800 networks worldwide. What puts this company ahead of the others? Teamwork.
The Mercedes-Benz 190 class for 1985. So masterfully engineered that it can perform with the world's finest sports sedans. And that makes it exciting. Yet so conscientiously engineered that its feeling of sheer driving security is unique. And that makes it a Mercedes-Benz. The 190 class, Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world.
This story is guaranteed to ignite debate. South Africa. Is there a case for South Africa? Many Americans say there is no case. It is a state based on racism, and the Reagan administration is a partner in that crime. The South African government argues that Western news reports are one-sided and one-dimensional, that their society is more complex than simply black and white, that there's another side to their story. They say democracy American style does not work in Africa. In this, the facts sadly support them. Virtually every state in independent black Africa is a one-party state. Only the degree of oppression and corruption varies. South Africa also points to the mismanagement of agriculture that's responsible in part for the massive famine now taking place in countries to the north. The president, P.W. Botha, pleads that South Africa is a country in transition, entitled to the same consideration and patience as any country with a colonial past. We went to South Africa to hear him out and to see just how justified he is in saying the country is changing. Tonight, the other side of the story. Our vision of South Africa is of uncompromising apartheid, uncompromising racism. We mostly have news clip knowledge of the country, but while this is happening, so is this, and this. To our eyes, these are merely routine scenes of urban life. In South Africa, this breaking down of legislated racial barriers is a cosmic political event. These are changes that only a few years ago seemed beyond all possibility. One white South African, a severe critic who lived in exile for 20 years, returned as a tourist and was astounded to find the theaters virtually fully integrated, both in the audience and on the stage.
It's not the end of the world, you know. Yes. Okay, orders.
The restaurants, not just the fancy international hotel restaurants, but fast food joints, no longer segregated. The most earthy kinds of establishments where apartheid was practiced most harshly are open to anyone with the price of a game. And in places where contact is even closer, the old rules no longer apply. The steady collapse of at least the outward signs of apartheid continues slowly. The author of these changes is a most unlikely one, a man whose life and ideology have been the embodiment of apartheid. Peter William Botha, Prime Minister, just recently made President of the Republic. Botha, the Afrikaner whose forefathers settled here in Cape Town on the southern tip of Africa more than 3 centuries ago, had been a key figure in keeping the faith of apartheid, in keeping this breathtaking city and this bountiful country firmly in the hands of a white minority. His instruments were his national party and, here in Cape Town, the Parliament. And yet, here is P.W. Botha welcoming new members to his President's Council.
Wonderful to be here.
It was Botha who wrought the constitutional changes that brought non-whites into the government for the first time, giving people of mixed blood, so-called coloreds, and Asians political representation in a 3-chamber parliamentary system.
I almost broke down yesterday when we started the session. We waited so long for such a consensus to take place, and it took place.
Blacks remain excluded, but colored and Asian parties say they will use their new political rights, however slight, to end that exclusion. Critics call the new Constitution a hoax, a way of perpetuating apartheid, and keeping real power even more firmly in white hands. Botha's own right wing calls it a sellout, an opening of the floodgates of change that will drown their white promised land in a sea of black power. To them, Botha is a dangerous reformer. If he is one, he is an unlikely one. At 68, he has spent his entire working life as a bureaucrat for the National Party, the party of the white tribe of South Africa, whose roots go back to 17th century Holland. Botha is a stern, old-fashioned man, very religious, very private, the quintessential Afrikaner. He was considered by friend and foe in and out of his party to lack the imagination to lead, strictly the good soldier Botha. Today, his enemies on the left see him as an old racist in new clothing. On the right, as a traitor to the true faith of apartheid. Botha and his supporters see themselves as a new political center, above all pragmatists who are prepared to accept gradual change, never revolutionary change. Botha, chief of state of a pariah, an outcast nation, is determined to adjust. We must adapt or die, he says. The we he speaks of are these men at the annual Congress of the National Party. For 40 years, they have dominated South African politics, as stiff-necked a group of backwoodsmen as you will find anywhere, yet Botha brought them around. You are said to be a blind party man, one of the architects of apartheid. And now you seem determined in many ways to dismantle apartheid, or the overt signs of apartheid. What caused this change in you?
In the first instance, let us just understand each other on what is meant by apartheid. If apartheid, which is an Afrikaans word for separateness, and there's no hate element in it, if that means, in the words of the international community, that it is a way of life to deny others their normal human rights, then I reject it. And I've always rejected it.
He does not, of course, absolutely reject it. Certainly not in terms of political rights or in rescinding the laws that dictate where a person may live. Thus, sprawling black townships, which include black millionaires and black professionals, but are mostly made up of black working class and black poverty class. Outside of the townships, apartheid is disappearing. Petty rules have been repealed or are ignored. Sports have become integrated. Some of higher education is integrated. Even the laws that ban marriage and sexual relations between the races are expected to be lifted next year. Race or ethnicity in South Africa is the inescapable topic A. Being Afrikaner or English, Italian or Portuguese, Jewish or Indian or Zulu or Tswana or Hosa or Soto is stated almost immediately to a visitor. The broad breakdown is almost 5 million whites, 23 million blacks, over 2.5 million coloreds, and 750,000 Asians. The blacks may massively outnumber all others, but they are hardly a cohesive bloc, split by tribe, tradition, and religion. At least 1 million are not South African at all, but illegal immigrants from independent African states who come seeking better wages and living conditions. No matter what South Africa's reputation may be, it offers the highest level of black literacy on the continent, the highest state benefits, and roughly the same political freedom as its neighbors. Blacks provide the labor that keeps the farms and mines and kitchens and factories of South Africa producing. They're without political rights, but in recent years they have gained power through the union movement. Organized labor is as rare on this continent as freedom of speech. Many South African factories are foreign-owned. American companies have led the way in changing the structure of apartheid on the job. They have maintained a policy of equal pay for equal work, a single union contract that has forced black man and white man to work together, and lately opened up supervisory jobs to blacks. Today, apartheid has been virtually banished from the assembly line. But when union leaders tried to raise their voices against apartheid beyond the factory floor, they were immediately arrested. Nevertheless, the union movement has meant opportunity and economic clout for blacks.
He's actually incurred these expenses. We have to process them into the system.
If South Africa does have an ideology, it is one that it shares with much of the world: consumerism. Black and white together make their daily religious trek. It is called shopping. Since money has only one color, it makes for the easy mixing of all colors. Regular paychecks, it can be argued, are a remarkable integrating force. It is also argued that the larger the black middle class becomes, the more intense the pressure will be on the white power structure to grant political reform. For what is ultimately at stake is this: they have built themselves a nation of cities that will rival anything anywhere. In the process, they have also built something that is very difficult to simply walk away from. Scratch most liberal whites here deeply enough, and you will find people not prepared to submit to immediate black autonomy. There has not yet been a single successful black-dominated multiracial democracy in Africa. Not a popular view, but a bitter fact. As out of sympathy as one might be with white South African attitudes, one can hardly blame them for holding on to this glorious land. Almost all agree that change must happen, that the old utter intransigence will no longer work. But change happens very slowly, at an ox's pace. Botha will prod the ox, but only so hard. There are limits to restructuring society, limits that must be publicly stated.
A system of one man, one vote in a unitary state in the Republic of South Africa will simply not work. It will simply not work.
I'm not prepared to overthrow orderly government. That is a minimum requirement for me. Orderly government.
Reverse it. What are the things you are prepared to accept?
What I'm prepared to accept is to grant full political rights to every minority, every people with its own historical background, its own ambitions, under a system of devolution of power, so that they will be able to control their own affairs.
And by that, Botha means the homeland, areas set aside along tribal lines, small black independent nations under the umbrella of the South African economic and security systems. There are 4 of these homelands so far, and the rest of the world ignores them as independent states. They are seen by blacks and much of the world to be like the new Constitution, another hoax, a means of perpetuating white power in the richest part of the country, reducing South Africa's black population by assigning it to the bleakest,
least arable parts, while maintaining an easily available black workforce. Nevertheless, South Africa pours hundreds of millions, almost 10% of its national budget, into these homelands.
I am prepared to cooperate in the economic field, provided it is a system of private initiative. I am prepared to overthrow measures of the past which are not necessary for the protection of my right to self-determination.
Can you envisage a day in which there will be full equality for blacks in this country?
Not in the sense that it is being applied in many African states.
Well, that's an enigmatic answer.
But in the sense, yes, that it will satisfy my conscience, I say yes.
En wat zei daar die internationale monetaire fonds? Hij zegt Afrika-staten, tellen van hulle staan voor die dood.
The hardliner emerges whenever he feels he must reassure the faithful, calm the doubtful, and impress outsiders that South Africa is not about to collapse in the face of other people's moral outrage. To back him, there is the most powerful armed force on the continent, and the suspicion that it is a nuclear force. Incidentally, the South African army is now fully integrated. Blacks and whites share barracks and dining halls. It was Botha, as defense minister, who did this. He has used his army to great effect in neighboring Angola and Mozambique, and then signed treaties of peace and cooperation with both those states. Important proof, Botha feels, that South Africa is prepared to fight or negotiate with black nationalists. They must decide that in the final analysis, South Africa is a major strategic presence in the world. The word pariah is only slightly annoying rhetoric.
I can't care less, because what we must do in South Africa is do what is right, not what the world tells us to do. And I think it's right to allow people to execute its own, exercise its own right of self-determination.
Do you feel that, apart from public statements made by this politician or that politician, that the United States is really a good friend of South Africa?
I'm not a cynic, but I don't believe that you have love and friendship between nations. I think you have interests between nations. And I think the United States and the Republic of South Africa have common interests. But the moment the interests between states diminish, that moment they drive apart.
What would an economic boycott do to this country? Could you survive it?
They couldn't even apply a proper arms boycott against us. We defeated it. We are exporting now.
Do I detect a new assertiveness about South Africa in the sense that, look, here we are, we're very strong, we're changing, and we are going to be ourselves whether anyone else likes it or not?
Well, you see, we don't want to tell the world go to the devil. I don't think that is the way we should deal with the international world. All we need is mutual respect. There is no other country with the complex problems that we have here. We are a United Nations in the small. And we are going about it in our own way. And we are not arrogant, but we are determined.
The world has been saying for 40 years that the apocalypse is coming. If a time bomb is ticking away here, away from the black townships anyway, few seem to notice it. The attitude on race is changing, particularly among the young. A park that only a few years ago was whites only becomes a park for anyone who wants to use it. And all do, and the world does not end. In political terms, the millions of blacks are very weak. They are divided, waiting for outside events, boycotts, and condemnation to liberate them. More active means are harshly suppressed. At the same time, there are new possibilities for them.
However unacceptable the West may find South Africa's system, it lives with it because South Africa is the major source of strategic minerals. But on those questions of human rights, Botha and his supporters say the world will not acknowledge that on their continent, their courts are fairer, their press freer, their concern for the poor and hungry far greater. And finally, they say, do not compare us with the world's model democracies. Compare us with the democracies of Africa, most of the Arab world, much of Asia, and all of the Soviet Empire.
This is the definitive book on champagne. While writing it, noted author William Kaufman evaluated the finest champagnes in the world.
Here's an extraordinary find. A California champagne that is both truly dry and delightfully drinkable. New Andre Brut. No other American champagne can compare.
New Andre Brut. No other American champagne can compare.
Data General asks, are you buying yesterday's technology? Data General, computer systems so advanced, we win more major contracts than any other company. Data General.
The best thing about the new Volkswagen Golf is its German-engineered handling. Actually, the best thing about the new Golf is its exceptional space. Then again, the best thing about the Volkswagen Golf is its remarkable aerodynamics. This is the best thing about the new Volkswagen Golf. Golf. It's not a car. It's a Volkswagen. Next.
The murder of a Soviet agent.
Entraps Jessica Fletcher between two anxious superpowers.
Major Kossoff, this is my turf.
William Conrad's the KGB officer. Dean Clark's the headstrong FBI man. Can Angela Lansbury solve the murder and prevent an international incident? It's an all-star cast on Murder, She Wrote.
Monday.
My wife is a compulsive gambler.
A housewife in too deep. Can Cagney and Lacey find her before loan sharks out for blood money?
If you don't, she won't be worth it.
Monday.
You may not know this, but a little over a year ago, Yul Brynner was given a death sentence, told he had lung cancer, had just 3 months to live. His story is one of courage and determination, and his battle a triumph of the spirit, because today Yul Brynner is not only alive, but going strong. He has beaten it. At least he has kept it at arm's length. Brynner has spent more than 50 years in show business, 50 years that have been very lucrative and personally fulfilling.
He's been a stage star, a movie star, a sex symbol, a man of mystery. He's often played the bad guy. He's been a pharaoh, a cowboy, a killer, and a king. He originated the role in The King and I on Broadway back in 1951. And he got an Oscar for the film version in 1956. The play was revived in the 70s, and in 1981, they scheduled a grueling 31-city tour, and the King once again took his show on the road. But while playing in Los Angeles, Yul Brynner was told he had inoperable lung cancer. He was told by the doctors to cancel the remainder of the tour, but he didn't close the show. Brynner continued doing 8 performances a week, and in fact, the whole play took on a new meaning for him.
And it suddenly hit me in the death scene. Why should it happen to me? If only it didn't happen, wouldn't it be better? I found a different attitude toward it. I found different levels on which I could play it. Sometimes I used it in sadness. Why should it happen to me? Now that it's this way, I have to fight it. I have to fight it the right way, so I come out all right.
Faith?
Faith. absolute faith. I'm a man of faith. I believe in a higher organization without which I'd be scared to death. There is a higher organization. You can call it God, you can call it Allah, you can call it Muhammad, you can call it anything you want.
But you believe?
But I believe, yes, absolutely.
Brynner received radiation 6 times a week for 8 weeks, and still he never missed a performance.
You can't just lie down and say, let it happen to you.
Come.
You go to battle. I would be incapable of going and lying down in bed and resting, supposedly. But how are you going to turn off your mind? How are you going to turn off what you feel and think while lying down and waiting for the radiation to take effect or not take effect? It's much easier to go in front of 2,500 people and have them standing up in standing ovations at the end of the show 8 times a week. That must give you a charge of adrenaline that must be somewhat therapeutic.
Eliza's Lord and Master, King Simon of Legris.
Kathy Brynner is the lead dancer in the show. They met 6 years ago while the King and I was playing London. She is 27, he is 64. They'd been married only 6 months when they got the bad news.
Panic, Kathy?
Yes, of course. Because they didn't know whether it was in the lymph system or it was from the lungs, which it turned out
They didn't know how much
lungs.
ground it covered.
Yeah. But the fact that it had traveled in the lymph was bad news. I mean, it had everything. And then suddenly the cancer was just finished. Nothing meant anything anymore. You know, it's just from day to day.
My concern was much more with her, in a sense, and how she would survive the trials, because that can be scary for somebody next to you, you know. So I didn't want to scare her either.
Well, also to see your deterioration with the radiation and the illness. It's so funny because Yul has an aversion to the word cancer. He calls it illness.
I don't particularly care if I say cancer, but it's kind of too grandiose. You know, because I never thought of death either with a big D. You know, I see death as the end of every day. I never feel that tomorrow is guaranteed in any way whatsoever. I was taught from childhood to see it in an entirely different way, you know. You're glad of the morning when it comes, but you don't count on it.
This fellow in heaven would have struggled away. Every day I try to live another day.
The afternoon of opening night in St. Louis, producer Mitch Lee flew in to give the cast a run-through in their new surroundings, and he told me the doctors were astonished at Brynner's apparent recovery.
The medical profession took the position that it was a freak, that it was a fluke, and that, you know, chalk it up to one of those flukes.
He's saying it now.
It's a puzzle. It is a puzzle. Go on, please.
Mitch, for sure, has he won?
As far as I'm concerned, he's won. Because if nothing else happens, then the great, you know, good luck of having him for another year. I'm way ahead. What kind of a negotiating position do I have? I see him getting better. I don't see him getting less. I don't see him getting more frail or more tired or anything like that. He gets more energy, gets more excitement.
I walked in here this afternoon. I haven't seen him in years. It seems to be the same old energy, the same old psychic and physical.
His concentration is incredible. It's the very strength and the power of his art is the ability to really concentrate on the character, concentrate on the problem, concentrate on the illness, concentrate and overcome.
Hey, close the curtains, please.
Incredible.
At the bottom, when it really hit, when he really began to...
Okay, on the Royal Princess...
Pessimist, realist. The possibility occurred. We discussed what if. And then we both decided that he was going to beat it. He took direction the best he ever did. I told him that he just had to beat it. I had no other solution.
The Brynner's life is the theater. They live on the road. An impossible schedule of 4 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 3 weeks another place. And each time, each city, they try to duplicate all the comforts of home. Much has been said about the King's eccentricities. The dressing rooms must be freshly painted brown, each one to look like the one before. But on the road, you begin to understand the brown paint covers dirt. Creature comforts ease the pain of their vagabond existence.
Isn't this a lonely life, honest?
No, I have no problem with that. I really don't have a problem with
I mean, you really are a wandering player. A hotel room here, 5 weeks, 3 weeks. Your little family, your cast.
I was taught that you are born alone, you live alone, and you die alone. If you accept that as total reality, then any friendship and any relationship that contributes to your life, you accept with gratitude.
As a gift.
As a gift. You must never take it for granted.
You're a sentimentalist.
Also, why not? I'm the whole goulash. It's the whole enchilada, as the Mexicans say. That's kind of sweet. You should send them a thank you note.
Today, Brynner's x-rays remain clear of cancer, a remarkable feat which he credits to the doctor who has orchestrated his treatment from the beginning, Dr. Paul Rudnick of Los Angeles. But in the months following the radiation, he also received some unorthodox treatment from an immunologist who runs a clinic in Germany. He spent 6 days there and now maintains a regimen which fairly well governs his life. Diet, injections, vitamins, inhalations of plant extracts, all designed to rebuild his immune system and to help ward off a recurrence of the cancer.
You know, we must say that all of this is done under the direction of physicians. I mean, this is not...
Absolutely.
But Rudnick now approves of all of this? Your quarterback, Dr. Rudnick?
Oh, yes.
Well, he's in on everything that Yul takes anyway. So if he, found something objectionable, he would have said so. But I think his approach is if it's not harmful, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Tell me something, Kathy.
Yes.
There is a death scene
Yes.
each night.
Yeah.
Hard to watch?
Not anymore. It was in Los Angeles when we were there. Yeah.
At the beginning, I would think.
Yeah.
But there's bound to be a shadow.
Yes, of course. I mean, leaving a mark on us.
I mean, there's no guarantee.
No. That's what, yes, you're right. Because, like he's having a cold right now and he coughs in the middle of the night and I hear it. And of course you think immediately, I hope not,
I had a thought at one moment that should, by any chance, I not win my battle, I'd like to leave a commercial behind me. And I was going to call you and say, let's do this together. And I wanted to say, I'm talking to you now that I'm gone. And I'm telling you right now, without any question in my mind, that I'm doing the right thing. That you must stop smoking. Don't think it's too late. Don't think it's too early, that you can still get away with some of it. Just get rid of it.
He used to smoke 5 packs of cigarettes a day.
At bottom, that's what you believe it did it to you.
That's really what I'm convinced did it to me. Because otherwise I was an enormously healthy and very strong man.
It's suicide, in effect.
It's suicide. It is suicide. No question about it. It is taunting death.
Later this month, Yul Brynner and The King and I make their triumphant return to Broadway, the end of his farewell tour. The completion of the circle which began on Broadway 34 years ago.
Mommy, will you read me a story?
Which one?
What's that?
Your daddy gave it to me.
What for?
Our anniversary.
Do you like it?
Oh, I love it. It felt as if it was the most wonderful feeling. Like when I was 20 and your daddy asked me to marry him.
Did he say yes?
Of course. You've got the greatest daddy in the world.
The diamond anniversary ring, the gift that says you'd marry her all over again.
Introducing a computer that can change the way you work. The new Tandy 1000, complete with DeskMate software for easy-to-use word processing, filing, worksheets, scheduling, communications. Brought to you by Tandy, clearly superior for service, support, and software. The Tandy 1000, available at Radio Shack computer centers and so affordable. Tandy technology, service, and support are clearly superior.
60 Minutes, a CBS News weekly magazine, will continue.
Tuesday, when Alex loses his job, they suddenly become the ultimate couple of the 80s.
We're gonna make you me and get you a job.
Right. Now, can she survive being him, and can he survive being her?
Mr. Housewife.
It's Wayne Rogers and Karen Valentine, starring in He's Fired, She's Hired, Tuesday.
Oh, it's a classic.
This is CBS.
You know, Jewel Jewelers has over 5,000 gifts to be sold to people every day. Wow!
And Santa happens to know that they have hundreds of them on sale right now.
Already?
Yes, this Douglas cordless handbag has a final cost of $18.97 after your Douglas rebate, and it has substantially more power than even the Dustbuster Plus. This popular Eureka upright comes with attachments and edge cleaning. We've already put it on sale for only $79.90. Take advantage of Jewel Cor's big sale.
Right now!
Watch The People's Court at 5:30 weekdays on TV 22.
In northwest Indiana, just a few dozen miles up the interstate from where General William Henry Harrison and the Indians battled at Tippecanoe during the War of 1812, Harry Reasoner found another battle. This one about water. On one side, small property owners. On the other side, a major corporate farmer called the Prudential Insurance Company of America, which owns more than 500,000 acres of farmland in this country.
This is Prudential's farm, spread over 23,000 acres in 2 counties. Because some of the soil here does not retain rainwater, Prudential sank deep wells and erected 32 huge irrigation rigs like these that move from acre to acre, spraying out water that neighbors say smells bad, causes their own water to turn brown, and puts fertilizer nitrates in the ground that they claim is a health hazard. As if that's not enough, they say Prudential's wells and irrigation rigs are drawing water away from their crops and livestock, leaving them high and dry.
I feel that we people have been here for 2 and 3 generations. Many of these are family farms. And I don't think the new kid on the block should have all the advantages.
We immediately went out and said, we have inconvenienced these people. We are going to help them solve the problem. It became known as Prudential's good neighbor policy. Certainly not any kind of admission of guilt, but rather just plain and simply being a good neighbor to your fellow neighbor.
Les Horsager is Prudential's vice president for agricultural investments, and he says his company helped out by paying half of what it costs its neighbors to drill new wells.
They were pleased that we were a good neighbor and went out and helped it. But there is a small band of people who just kind of move from issue to issue to issue, and that is where our problem has been in trying to resolve it.
The first time we run out of water, the very first time we run out of water, we knew what it was, and I called Prudential headquarters over at the farm at Fair Oaks. And the first thing the man said to me was, there is nothing you can do about it. There is no law saying that we can't pump water. Now, if that is being a good neighbor, I sure don't want no bad one.
Tom and Elma Coos and 37 other landowner families took their case to court last year and won a limited injunction, slightly curtailing Prudential's pumping. Prudential is appealing that ruling.
You had to haul water for the stock.
Yes, that's what that big tank right there is for. My neighbor, last summer, when we lost the water in the well, he says, I will bring you down a tank of water so you'll have something to water the horses and stuff with. So we brought that down. It's a 1,000-gallon tank. He brought it down for us.
You had any other trouble with the stock?
We had one pony go lame this summer. We called a vet out to look at her, and the only thing he could come up with was hard, dry ground.
Dr. Steve Beckham, a former Purdue University agronomist hired by the plaintiffs, says Prudential is responsible for the depleted water table.
You can see it's pretty obvious here what kind of ear this plant has. There's no corn there. There's a little bit of corn there, but that's not an ear of corn. That wouldn't make anyone any money.
It'd hardly be worth harvesting.
A field of that would probably be 10, 15 bushel the acre. It wouldn't cover even combining costs.
This blueberry patch, once abundant, is owned by the Spall family. There was only a 20% crop this year. The plants have not budded, which may mean no berries next season. And the Molsons, who own 150 Arabian horses and farm 2,000 acres, fear they will run out of water again, as they did earlier last summer. These animals drink a lot of water. Dorothy and Albert used to irrigate this land, but they stopped 7 years ago because they say it hurt neighbors and themselves. Mervyn Barkey, who lives within eyesight of a Prudential rig, believes the nitrogen fertilizer fed to the crops through the irrigation system drifted in the air to his orchard and damaged his apples. And he says the same airborne fertilizer takes the paint right off his car. One of the farmers' contentions is that much of Prudential's land is not good farmland, even with irrigation. Land like this, like an inland beach dune. This land requires not only water, but a lot of fertilizer. And that brings up another contention, that nitrates from the fertilizer, moving in the water, have polluted the wells of nearby homes. Jim Etzel, Chief of Environmental Engineering at Purdue, thinks that's so. He has analyzed the records of a half-dozen homes with nitrate levels well above federal maximums. He says the indications are the pollution is not from septic fields or livestock, but from fertilizer. That's a health hazard, particularly for families with young children. Art and Cindy Walker can't use their contaminated water. They drink bottled water from a friend.
Ladies, would you like to do your laundry in water like this? Would you like to make your husband's breakfast coffee from water like this? Maybe you'd like to take a bath or shampoo your hair in it. I can't do any of those things in my home.
Wanda Prohaski described her problems at a recent town meeting.
Prudential is punishing me with water like this to put on their crops so they can make a few more dollars. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know where to go next. All I know is I can't live with this anymore.
I wasn't there before, but we certainly saw a lot of water while we were there in various homes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it was awful. It was dirty, it was full of sediment, it was indescribably smelly, and the people who were showing us these things said that that was not true before the heavy irrigation began.
Okay, the discoloration, that can be avoided by simply setting your pump deeper in the well. What happens is, as the water level declines in a well, in one of these wells, you get turbulence in there, and sediment is stirred up in the well.
4 feet 1.5 inches.
4 feet 1.5.
Mrs. Prohaski and her husband Bob measure their well frequently, watching the level and quality fluctuate with irrigation intensity.
Very slow recovery.
And as she told her neighbors at that town meeting, the tap water is clouded and distasteful. The shower stall and bathrooms unsightly from the water sediment. These praying mantises are pulling enormous quantities of water from the ground. 1.3 billion gallons this year by Prudential's own estimates. 4 times as much as 3 years ago. Neighbors argue the consequences of this are higher concentrations of odorous hydrogen sulfide and dangerous levels of nitrates in some wells.
Regarding the smell, hydrogen sulfide has been present in that area since as far back as the early 1900s.
There are 2 ways of looking at this thing. To its owners and defenders, it's the state-of-the-art tool of agriculture. Over a period of 4 or 5 days, it rolls on its huge tires across hundreds of acres, bringing life-giving water, mixed with fertilizer, to land where not much of anything grew before. But hundreds of farmers in this part of Indiana see instead a soulless and ominous Star Wars creature, threatening their heritage, their land, their livelihood.
Purdue University is 50 miles away. There are all kinds of specialists there who have had a lot of experience with this kind of ground. They could have gone there and said, hey, how do we farm this ground?
They didn't do that?
No.
Prudential says it did research the land and water potential, and its pumping has not reduced neighbors' crop yields. It argues the 2 recent near-drought years in the Midwest have caused the problems. Tom Bruns of the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, the agency charged with enforcing the water laws, says the state is concerned there may be damage to the water table or aquifer. Prudential used about 1/3 of a billion gallons of water in this farm in 1981. And last year, I believe it was up to about 1.3 billion gallons. Is that too much?
There are some very serious questions in the state government right now as to whether or not that level of pumpage is exceeding the recharge capability to the aquifer.
Well, the state has not only the legislature, but the Department of Natural Resources. Right. And this is their problem, right? I mean, it's what they're supposed to be watching.
I think they'd be protecting this resource.
George Caney's farm is right next to Prudential's land. He and his son Greg worry as they harvest corn and soybeans.
We're affected economically pretty bad, I think.
If I'm anywhere in the right ballpark figure, you're talking about maybe 25% loss or 30% loss?
I'd say 25 to 30% loss.
Which is a lot of money.
It's 6-figure money.
Mrs. Caney says her problems began 3 years ago.
The quality was so terrible. We have hot water heat, 3 floors of it of copper pipe, and it turned all our pipe in our basement all black. My fillings in my teeth, whenever I'd eat anything, they just go to a tin taste. And as many people have experienced, we suffered from diarrhea. The smell is something else.
A lot of the people are just frightened because they don't know anything about it.
Bill Hamster farms for Prudential, and he says the water problems are exaggerated.
And then there's been a lot of misinformation going around the area because one of the plaintiffs runs a farm show on a local radio station, so he gives us a shot every chance he gets.
60 degrees in Rensselaer, and right now we get farm news from Wally Laird.
At the co-op elevator in Rensselaer this morning.
Wally Laird reports farm news 6 mornings a week. On the day we visited, Laird interviewed County Commissioner Fred Boise.
Fred, they had a good neighbor policy. They did drill some wells for people. They paid part of the costs in several instances. Did they do enough?
If you do something that hurts your neighbor, I think you should be responsible for it. I don't think that they should be able to just walk away and say, well, I've got a good neighbor policy and I helped some. Some of the water that I've seen at these meetings is unfit to drink.
Prudential contends virtually all the charges leveled against it in court and elsewhere have been successfully refuted by its experts. Mr. Horsager argues the company is doing no permanent harm to the water table, and he says Prudential wants a fair resolution.
We would be sure that, as I told you before, that we will operate that farm in such a manner that it will not mine water, that it will maximize our productivity as well as providing for theirs. We share the same goals.
There are troubled waters under this soil as the farmers of these two Indiana counties harvest the crop and get ready for winter, measuring yields below expectations. And they watch with concern and hope as the new domestic wells go deeper for life-sustaining water. These drilling rigs and operators are searching for water that will not be turbulent with controversy. The plaintiffs say they don't want a piece of Prudential's rock, merely security and reason to hope for the future vitality and productivity of their land.
We'd have nothing against irrigation if it doesn't affect the neighbors. When they can use all the water they want that's under their ground, but when they start using the water that's under my ground and my neighbor's ground, then I think that's wrong.
For 1985, Plymouth engineers a new 550 Reliant K, the Reliant Super K. Magic. The best six-passenger car value. Backed with 550 protection. Aerodynamically redesigned to be more efficient. We made the best better. 550 Reliant, the Super K. Match it if you can. Plymouth, best built, best backed American cars.
Christmas is a time for closeness. And closeness is what Norelco razors are all about. Give the razors that challenge the world. Norelco Rotatract shaves close as a blade or your money back. Only Norelco holds a charge up to 3 times longer than any leading razor. It packs 3 floating heads with a patented twin-action shaving system. Give America's favorite, Norelco. Even our name says Merry Christmas.
If you can't get a computer to do anything but frustrate you, try the computer you already know how to use. Take Macintosh out for a free overnight test drive.
Monday, CBS brings you a joyous adaptation of the classic Christmas story.
You'll be there one day, playing with the other children.
I'm quite sure I will.
A timeless tale of merriment and gloom, as 3 magical spirits teach lessons of the heart to a miser named Scrooge, starring George C. Scott.
Every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding.
And God bless us all, everyone.
A Christmas Carol.
Humbug.
Half of you love it when football runs late, and half of you hate it. But nobody can figure out who's who in the standings and who's going to the Super Bowl. Well, stop worrying. Andy's got it all figured out.
Let's start from the beginning. There are 28 teams. Here they are. The Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons, the Philadelphia Eagles, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Seattle Seahawks are named after birds. These 28 teams are divided into 2 conferences, the National Conference and the American Conference. There's a little confusion right here because the National Football League has a national conference. Each conference is divided into 3 divisions. This is the National Conference. It has an East, a Central, and a West division. There is no North or South division. Atlanta, Georgia, for instance, is in the Western Division, along with Los Angeles and San Francisco, and of course, New Orleans. Los Angeles actually has 2 teams, the Los Angeles Rams and the Oakland Raiders. New York, on the other hand, doesn't have any team because both the New York Giants and the New York Jets play in New Jersey. The Baltimore Colts play in Indianapolis now. Very poorly, I might add. Now, you want to know who's going to win the Super Bowl, probably. The San Francisco 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl because they have the best team and the best coach. But first, there are some formalities. As things stand now, about half of these teams, give or take a few teams, still have a chance. The teams that are tied in their divisions have to play each other and then someone else, unless they already beat that team twice or beat them once worse than they got beat by that team the other time. The losers will be eliminated, of course, but not necessarily. There will be some wild card selections, and perhaps I'll go into that some other time. So that's it. Now, if the Cowboys defeat the Miami Dolphins tomorrow night, all this will change.
I'm Worley Safer. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes.
Good morning, Spacemaker. All systems are go. Automatic timer on. Exact time of coffee is 7:00. You have liftoff. Looking good, Spacemaker. And smelling good. You have contact.
The GE Spacemaker coffee maker mounts under the cabinets, so when it isn't making coffee, it isn't taking up space. And it makes coffee that's out of this world. The Spacemaker coffee maker, only from GE.
People have always celebrated the joy of Christmas with the beauty of flowers. Now your FTD florist makes that celebration even more beautiful with the new candle lamp bouquet. It's the perfect gift to send to those special people to remind them you'll be thinking of them through the holidays. And it's so easy. With the magic of FTD, I can send one to my sister in Arizona, my mother in Utah, my producer in New York. And this one, I'm saving just for you. Merry Christmas from FTD.
Chrysler introduces the new technology of driving. Turbo New Yorker. Front-wheel drive, electronics to inform you. Chrysler luxury to comfort you, and turbo power to move you. Turbo New Yorker. Once you drive it, you'll never go back to a V8 again. This is Chrysler's most technologically advanced luxury car, backed by the Chrysler Protection Plan. Turbo New Yorker by Chrysler. The best built, best backed American cars.
I was taught that you're born alone, you live alone, and you die alone. If you accept that as total reality, then any friendship and any relationship that contributes to your life, you accept with gratitude.
As a gift.
As a gift.
Now stay tuned as William Conrad, Herb Hatfield, Claude Akins, and Tom Bosley join Angela Lansbury on Murder, She Wrote, next.
A police state that taxes the unmarried, taxes the childless, forces pregnancy checkups on young girls, jails abortionists and patients for up to 10 years. It's not a fictional nightmare, it's the frightening fact in Romania today. The Baby Factory, a report from behind the Iron Curtain, tomorrow on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Coming Sunday, December 30th, he's a streetwise private eye looking for the action. I hope he's got insurance. His son's an attorney, trying to find some peace and quiet.
You just committed a felony in my name.
Don't worry about it. Jack Wharton, John Rubinstein, they're not just crazy.
Gotta admit.
They're crazy like a fox.
A lot more fun than making out wills, huh?
This is CBS.